Tonight, another in our continuing series of special interviews with officials in this area responsible for trying to control crime. With me is a man who has been Dade State Attorney for 18 years, Richard E. Gerstein. One recent study reported that 90% of America's serious crimes, which end up being prosecuted, are settled through plea bargaining. As our chief prosecutor, how do you feel about that?
I'd like to be able to totally avoid plea bargaining if we had the facilities to do that. But it would mean so many additional hundreds of millions of dollars that it's out of the question. But we have some very stringent controls in my office that I think make it as acceptable as it can be under present circumstances. Before any plea can be negotiated or bargained, the prosecutor must have the approval of the police officers who investigated the case and of the victim of the crime or his family. In addition to that, I have a regulation which prohibits prosecutors from setting sentences with defense lawyers. I want sentences to be set by the judge. That's what the people elect judges for, and that's what they are paid to do. So we'd like to be able to do without plea bargaining. We just don't have the courtrooms or the prosecutors or the facilities to avoid it, so we do the next best thing. We regulate it very stringently.
Is there a possibility that there is some miscarriage of justice through this plea bargaining system?
Occasionally there can be, but I think that the manner in which we regulate it, for the most part, negates that possibility.
We've had 235 murders in Dade County so far this year. People are frightened here. Can you suggest something of a remedial nature?
I think that of course, is a basis to be frightened. I think we need increased police concentration on the kind of crimes that are frightening and worrying people. That is assaults, burglaries, robberies, the kind of thing where people's safety is imperiled. I think those are the things that concern people in the United States. I think there is too much police emphasis in other areas. And I think that anyone who commits a burglary of your home or robs you at gunpoint in Dade County ought to know that he is going to get a minimum sentence of 10 years in the state prison. I think this community ought to get their reputation for being a tough place to rob someone or to burglarize their home. I think that would be a deterrent.
What about the control of handguns in this country?
I'm very much in favor of that. I advocated it as early as 1961 before the Florida legislature. I think it's high time in this country that we stop making it easier to get a handgun and to own one and to use it than it is to drive a motor vehicle. We ought to have some pretty stringent controls. There are just too many honest law-abiding people being killed by guns, and too many law enforcement officers being killed by guns in the hands of the wrong people.
Would you favor imposing the death penalty?
Yes, I'm very much in favor of it. I think that it constitutes a very solid deterrent to certain people who would commit murder. Obviously, it doesn't deter all murders, but there are many people who are deterred by the prospect of the death penalty. And if the death penalty saves even one life, it's worth having on the statute books. We ought to have lots of controls and lots of safeguards involving its imposition. But there are many cases that absolutely warrant the death penalty, in my view, and as long as it continues to deter some people from committing murder, it's worth having.
We've been talking about aspects of the criminal justice system with our guest tonight, Dade State Attorney Richard Gerstein. Thank you. Good night. May the good news be yours.